For 20 years, the most important machine ever built was not in America. The aeroplane that first carried a man into the sky hung in a museum in London, because Orville Wright refused to let his own country keep it. His government's museum had told the world that someone else flew first, and the man who proved it was his enemy. On one side, two bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio, Wilbur and Orville Wright, the first men to fly. On the other, Glenn Curtiss, a motorcycle racer, called the fastest man on Earth before he ever left the ground. They should have been allies. Instead, they spent a decade trying to destroy each other. December 17th, 1903, a windswept sandbar in North Carolina called Kitty Hawk. 12 seconds, 120 feet, and a machine of spruce and muslin lifted a human being off the ground under its own power. There were 5 witnesses, almost nobody believed them, and the Wrights preferred it that way. Because they were terrified of being copied, they flew in secret in a cow pasture outside Dayton, behind a screen of trees. They refused to show the machine to any buyer who had not already signed a contract. The greatest invention on Earth sat in a shed while its inventors waited for the world to come to them. And they had armed themselves. In 1906, they were granted United States Patent 821393. Read it closely and you find something extraordinary. They had not patented an engine or a propeller, or even their aircraft. They had patented the idea of controlling a machine by twisting its wings, the principle of turning itself. Any aeroplane that banked into a turn belonged to them. Meanwhile, in Hammondsport, New York, Glenn Curtiss was building engines. For bicycles, then motorcycles, then anything that would take one. In 1907, he bolted a monstrous V8 aero engine into a motorcycle frame, pointed it down a Florida beach, and hit 136 miles an hour. The papers called him the fastest man on Earth. He had never flown a meter. Then a telegram came from Alexander Graham Bell. The inventor of the telephone was assembling a team to crack powered flight, and he wanted the best engine man in America. Curtiss joined the Aerial Experiment Association. Bell's group wrote politely to the Wrights, asking for advice. The Wrights answered politely and told them nothing. So, Bell's team worked it out alone. On the 4th of July, 1908, Curtiss climbed into a machine called the June Bug and flew more than a kilometer in front of a crowd, reporters and a timing committee. It won the Scientific American Trophy, and it mattered for the reason the Wrights hated. America had finally watched an aeroplane fly. Not in secret, in public. But look at how the June Bug turned. Curtiss did not twist his wings. He hung small hinged flaps between them. Ailerons, the same surfaces on the wing of every airliner you have ever boarded. A different mechanism, arguably a better one. Wilbur Wright looked at those flaps and saw one thing: theft. In 1909, the Wright Company sued. The argument was breathtaking in its reach. It does not matter how you control an aeroplane, only that you control it. Warping, hinging, flapping, all of it was theirs, and an American court agreed. Curtiss was ordered to stop flying for money or pay the Wrights for every ticket sold. Curtiss did not pay. He appealed, he stalled, he redesigned, he flew anyway. The Wrights, drowning in legal fees, sued exhibition pilots, sued foreign builders, sued anyone who left the ground. Their company stopped inventing and started litigating. And while America argued in courtrooms, France and Germany built aeroplanes. Then the feud took its first life. In May 1912, Wilbur Wright, the sharper brother, the one who carried the whole legal war on his back, caught typhoid fever and died. He was 45. Their father wrote in his diary that Wilbur had been worn down by the lawsuits. Orville believed it too. From that day, he did not fight Curtiss over a patent. He fought him over a brother. In 1914, the appeals court handed Orville everything. The patent was upheld in its widest possible form. Ailerons infringed it, and Curtiss owed damages on every machine he had ever sold. On paper, the war was over. Orville Wright had won. And that is when his enemy found a weapon no court could touch. To understand that weapon, go back to 1903, 9 days before Kitty Hawk. Samuel Langley, secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, launched his own flying machine from a houseboat on the Potomac. It was called the Aerodrome. It went straight into the water. He tried again. It went straight into the water again. Langley was ruined and he died a broken man. But the Smithsonian never forgave history for choosing two bicycle mechanics over its own chief scientist. Langley's successor and close friend Charles Walcott ran the institution now, and Walcott wanted the record rewritten. He could not unfly the Wright Flyer, so he set out to prove the Aerodrome could have flown first if only it had been given a fair chance. And who did the Smithsonian hand the wreck of the Aerodrome to? Glenn Curtiss. In 1914, the museum shipped Langley's failed machine to Hammondsport, to the workshop of the one man in America with a reason to bury the Wright patent. If Langley flew first, the Wrights invented nothing. Curtiss rebuilt it. And here is what the Smithsonian left off the label. He did not repair the Aerodrome, he redesigned it. New wing ribs, new trussing, a new propeller, a Curtiss engine. Then he fitted floats, and in 1914 he hopped Langley's ghost off the surface of a lake for a few seconds. It was enough. The photographs existed. The Aerodrome went back to Washington, was restored to its original form, and hung in the Smithsonian under a card that read, "The first man-carrying aeroplane in the history of the world capable of sustained free flight." Millions of American schoolchildren walked beneath it. Nowhere in that building was a word about what Curtiss had changed. Orville Wright understood exactly what had been done to him. Not a lawsuit, not a rival machine, a museum. The official memory of his own country had been quietly edited, and the edit was carried out in his enemy's workshop. He demanded the Smithsonian tell the truth. For 14 years, the Smithsonian said nothing. So in 1928, Orville did the one thing that would hurt. He crated up the 1903 Flyer, the actual machine from Kitty Hawk, the first aeroplane in the world, and shipped it across the Atlantic to the Science Museum in London. If America would not tell the truth about its own history, America could not have it. And there it hung, for 20 years. The real bill came due elsewhere. When America entered the First World War, it found it had almost no aircraft industry left. The patent war had strangled it. The government forced every manufacturer into a single patent pool. Then came the final irony. In 1929, the two companies that had spent a decade at each other's throats merged into one firm. It is still in business today. Its name is Curtiss-Wright. Glenn Curtiss did not live to see it matter. He died in 1930 after surgery, 52 years old, still fighting the Wrights in court. And it took 12 more years, until 1942, before the Smithsonian finally published the truth. The aerodrome it had displayed was not the machine Langley built, and the Wrights flew first. Orville had outlived every man who had lied about him. Orville agreed to bring the Flyer home, but the war was on and the Atlantic was full of U-boats, so the first aeroplane in the world spent the Blitz hidden underground in an English quarry. And on the 30th of January 1948, Orville Wright died of a heart attack, with his aeroplane still at sea. The Flyer was raised into the Smithsonian on the 17th of December, 45 years to the day since Kitty Hawk. He won. He just never saw it come home. Two men invented the sky and then spent their lives arguing about who owned it. Every aeroplane you have ever flown in turns on Curtiss's Ailerons, and every one of them owes its existence to the Wrights. If you want the whole file on the next feud, subscribe.